Hi guys, welcome back to the Butterfly Effect podcast. Today we are going to be doing another deep dive of Life is Strange double exposure analysis, and we are on to episode 4 titled Penumbra. So as always, Jack, we are going to go into the main choices, then we'll go off into the minor choices, then we'll pick up any points that are left to say. So the first big choice is, could Safi hurt Max? Oh no, wait, hang on, I fucked that. It's like, could Max hurt Safi? What did you tell her?
I was in the vast majority of people here. I said no. Logic being was that, naturally you want to resolve the situation that's clearly set before them. So, we know that it's a Max shooting a gun at Safi. So, I almost did make that promise that if that choice was to come round again, that I wouldn't do it, to try and interrupt the timeline and therefore, ruin the whole thing that went before. So yeah, I said no, mate. What about you?
I was in the minority and I said yes. I was 18%. I think my reason being, I thought the game was going to kind of gear up to a very similar ending to Life is Strange 1. I had a bigger connection with Chloe than I did Safi, but I was kind of just saying to her, like, look, if you come up against me, I will go toe-to-toe with you, but also, if it's a choice of picking the universe versus you, I'm picking the universe. I'm sorry. So yeah, I was like, yeah, sorry, Safi. I mean, it said she actually took it well, but in the comment thing, it was like, oh, Safi was hurt by your answer. I was like, well, it didn't seem it, but regardless, though. So obviously, this is the one with the prank, mate, or the speech. Who did Safi turn into? Did she remain as herself, or did you have her scorn Lucas as Vin, mate?
Before we move on, I love the irony of what your previous answer there, where that the question was, could Max hurt Safi? And then by you saying that you could, it then hurt Safi.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
But yeah, no, I chose for Safi to be herself. Again, without going on too much of a deeper level of her character, but we know that she can shapeshift. She can be anyone she wants, right? But I think this particular story was obviously something very personal to her because Maya was her best friend and she knows that she's been cheated out, essentially. She lost her life because this teacher stole her work, basically. But, it was more important for her to go up there. But I'm started to replay it now. I'm looking forward to see what happens when she does go up there as, who is it, Vin? Yeah, Vin. So yeah, that was my reasoning, mate.
Yeah, I was 9%. I picked Vin, mate. And honestly, I kind of regret it. I don't really know why I did this because afterwards I regretted it. I was like, wait, holy shit, isn't Vin in the room as well? And we're shape-shifting as Vin, meaning that he's going to see himself. And honestly, real Vin disappears. Safi goes up as Vin, does the whole speech, and then leaves, and then Vin's in the room again. And I'm like, I don't know if it's a plot hole or if someone in the comments can point out what the fuck happened here, but no consequence comes of it. And it's like, did real Vin literally just step outside for a smoke break while it all went down and we got lucky? But yeah, like what you were saying, mate, I think it was Safi's battle to do, and I think it was supposed to be done head on for the best speech. I kind of had Vin, who did probably what Safi did, slated him. But I think my reason being is oh yeah, let's not reveal Safi. I probably got a bit confused about timelines and stuff there. But regardless though, mate, yeah, I digress. That's what I picked. Kind of regret it, but oh well. It was quite kind of fun to see. But I do think it is a bit of a nothing choice. It's probably just what skin you have, whose line delivery you got, I reckon. It would have been epic if there was consequence out of that.
In a way, I do think that actually it had the potential to be a very clever choice because 92% of people chose Safi to go as herself, right? You then have that section after, don't you, where Safi then disappears and I believe she has the gun. I can't quite remember. Maybe she does. And then Lucas supposedly disappears as well and goes off after her. So then it could have set up a situation whereby, she died anyway in the living world because, Lucas went after her, some shit went down or whatever. So actually you choosing to pose as her actually was to her detriment rather than as Vin. But, as we'll say, probably in this series in a separate video, the choice didn't go anywhere. I don't think.
No, for sure, mate. And the final major choice, mate. We only get 3 major choices this episode because what we will talk about later is it's a lot shorter this episode, clocking in an hour less. But so yeah, you have Safi. She's got the gun. She's aiming at her own mum. Did you talk her down or did you rush her?
I did try to talk her down because, well, in a real life situation, you wouldn't rush someone with a gun with an itchy trigger finger, would you? So it felt like it made more sense. We've seen it tons of times before in these sorts of games. To remain calm and composed is usually the way forward. So yeah, that was my reasoning for that one.
Yeah, minority again for me. I rushed her. Bit of a weird one. Yeah, I did. I really in the minority. I feel my reason being, right. It's like almost like a 5-minute section where we're already trying to talk her down. And to me, I kind of read the choice as, do you want to try what's failing again? Or do you want to kind of intervene? And I thought, she's got the gun. I feel like she's actually going to kill her at this point. And I felt like it needed a more hands-on, aggressive approach. That, and I also kind of like, the fans voted that way in the stream. But kind of what you said there about like, how usually doing the more cautious, sure-footed, nicer approach tends to work in these games. I wanted to take a bit of a leap of faith, thinking that maybe this is the point where that actually goes against you. I do think it is a little bit of a nothing choice. The final screen sort of says, oh, Safi blames herself or she blames you. So supposedly she was supposed to be really angry at me. But I didn't really sense that in the next episode. Like, I feel like maybe this is a bit of a nothing choice, because I think in both, Yaz gets shot in the shoulder regardless anyway. It's just supposedly who she blames in the end. But yeah, I don't know. So I'm not going to lie, mate. Probably kind of a bit of a disappointing choice for me. I don't know if you feel the same.
I think so. I think there's a few disappointing choices in this game. I mean, the description for what it says here for talking Safi down, it says, Safi appreciates your words, but feels resigned to her fate. So that, in essence, it sort of says, oh yeah, you tried to do the nice thing, but I'm going to do what I want anyway. Hence the fact that the choice doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah. Okay, mate. Well, we'll go for we'll whiz through all the minor choices. There's 2 that I'm going to lump together here, mate. Did you reflect at the Hellerton fireplace and at the Krampus party?
I did reflect at that one, the fireplace, and I did reflect at the Krampus party, and I was in a massive minority in that one.
Yeah, I did at the Hellerton fireplace. I didn't at the Krampus, so I was in the majority there. Don't know where it happened, but bit of nothing anyway, so I don't mind. What I will say though is that I have critiqued the music in this game quite a bit. Not that the music's bad, just that it doesn't capture that like original essence of the Life is Strange games. And while I'm putting like the Life is Strange 1 songs in my playlist, I'm not really doing the same for these ones. I actually really like the song that, you know, plays when you sat down at the fireplace. It's called Lights on Moscow, I Must Come Clean. And I don't know, just yeah, like I've jabbed the music quite a bit, but for the first time, and it's taken episode 4, I think there's a song here that I actually kind of like. So yeah. Also, lad, at Hellerton there is a to-do list on the fridge. Did you do the to-do list?
Yeah, it says that I saw the list in both timelines. So yeah, again, very minority. I don't know what was on the list. I can't remember. It's been weeks since I played it, but yeah, I've done both of them.
I didn't. Who's got the time for that? I completely missed it. So, like, what more can I say? I'll have to go back see what happens. But yeah, I just didn't do that one. So Safi impersonates Amanda, and then you recap it when you have to sit down and chat at the start of the episode. What did you say to Safi?
I said that it needs work. Like, obviously, this scene was like a very sort of frank discussion, wasn't it? So when that come up. And obviously this comes off the back of what I've said, you know, in the previous episode where you had that scene with what you thought was Amanda and something seemed a little bit off, wasn't it? So I feel like this was just the perfect point to, you know, just address that and be like, hey, like, something did seem a little bit off, so you should probably work on that. So yeah, I just told her straight.
Yeah, I did the same. I think the other choice was something along the lines of don't impersonate her again. Like, kind of like maybe aggressively. And I was like, because I've just told her I wouldn't have any problems killing her, I was like, okay, maybe I shouldn't pick that one. So I was like, yeah, I'd just kind of jokingly say, yeah, your impression needs work. Also, in the same conversation, mates, you can kind of scold Safi a little bit for what she did to Lucas with, you know, like kind of putting a wedge between him and his son. Did you scold her for that?
I did, yeah, I did. Because the thing is that it's not necessarily to do with Lucas. Like, we all know that the guy's a dick. Like, he's clearly taken merit for someone, one of his students. They've then killed themselves, and he's still self-promoting. He's sort of very self-important in that way. But you're impacting the son by doing what she did. You're impacting the son and his relationship with his father. So that's not very good, really. She should have handled that a little bit better in my eyes. So yeah, I did scold her.
Yeah, exactly the same. And you know, it's what you said, because it's affecting someone who's not even involved. And I was like, if you want justice on Lucas, maybe expose to the world that his book's a sham. Maybe, like, you know, tell Maya's family potentially. But the moment you actually start, you know, including it in his personal life, I'm like, yeah, you are taking it a bit far, and for something that's non-related to the actual incident. So yeah, I'm with you there. Did you tell Safi that she's dead in the other timeline? Or that you killed her?
Yeah, I did. I told her that she's dead in the other timeline. There was no way that I was going to say that it was her that killed her, because I was thinking if there is a way to get around this without having to reveal that, then, you know, it'll be better. But I did say that she was dead because, again, I feel like at this point it was a very frank conversation, but because of in the previous episode she was up really frosty with Max, this felt like a conversation where if you sort of hit the right beats and said the right things, you could get back on her side. So I almost wanted to give her enough information for her to trust me, but not too much. So that's why I did that.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm the same here, mate. But I'm pretty sure it's irrelevant, because I'm pretty sure she either finds the photo or she asks 5 seconds later, and then she finds out anyway. So it's a bit of a nothing choice, but also I wondered if it was a bit of a ploy to see if, like, Safi just wanted to see how honest you were. But I don't really think anything comes of it. So we're past this, then we're over at the Snapping Turtle. Did you help Moses with his gingerbread house?
I did, because this stank of like another achievement. So I was like, yeah, is there any time there's like the little mini game thing, like we had it with the turning the pictures round, the thing with the bathroom key, and I was just thinking, yeah, these seem like things that you could easily miss, but the game will reward you if you do them. So yeah, I did spend time going back and forth to get the bits for Moses so he could get his gingerbread house finished. What about you?
Yeah, same here. He also just looked really sad in the dead timeline. So yeah, I was like, yeah, here you go, Moses. Wanted to help you out. It helped your hand quite a little bit as well, so it's quite an easy one to do, because you see Safi building a gingerbread house in the Alive timeline. I quite like the little nod of, like, you know, Moses, you know, speaking, you know, with you as the messenger to Alive Safi in the other timeline. It's quite sweet to see those. But sometimes I do wonder if it just, because a lot of this is spent in the living timeline, if it's just an excuse to go back to the dead timeline. Unsure on that one, but yeah, like, I did help him build the gingerbread house. Did you get the Krampus jump scare, mate?
Ooh, remind me of that. That does not ring a bell.
Well, the choice is, did you look at the Krampus figure? It's basically in front of Amanda at the bar. If you interact with the Krampus toy, a little jump scare happens. It's not too much. I had it myself. It was just a bit of a fun moment. Nothing too much of it.
I mean, it says here that I did touch the Krampus figurine, so I must have done it, but I can't remember it.
Yeah, I mean, I might have remembered that wrong, but I'm pretty sure that is what happened. Obviously, we've spoke about this in past episodes, but like, you can go out on the patio and speak to Lucas when he's on the phone, where he's thinking about ducking out, and he's not even going to be at his own roast. Now, God knows how long I've been trying to get out onto this fucking patio. I don't know, like, because apparently you've told me you can do it in previous episodes. Took till episode 4, then I was finally able to do it, mate. Finally got out to the patio. How were you in insulting Lucas? Were you polite or rude?
I was polite to him. Again, I I had faith in the choice design at this point, because I was thinking, hey, look, if I'm not polite, if I don't try and get this guy to stick around, then the whole plan is going to fall in on itself. Because that's what the whole thing is, isn't it? Is like you're trying to get him to stay so that you can ultimately expose him for what he's done. So I was like, yeah, I don't like you, but I will play the game at this particular point so that you do get the sort of the humiliation and the justice that's deserved.
Yeah, same. Rumour was circling around that he was planning to duck out, and because he's this guy who's like really proud of this book that's not even his own work, I was like, he is the kind of character that needs buttering up. So I was like, yeah, the polite one is definitely the way to keep him around. So yeah, I did the exact same. Crowd participation, did you cheer or boo?
I booed.
Yeah, same. And I'm pretty sure we were asked to boo earlier, so I was like, well, I'm going to stick to the plan. So yeah, and the guy, made a student commit suicide, so I was like, yeah, he deserves a boo. Did you speak to both Moseses after the post-roast?
Mosai?
Mosai? Yeah, Mosai.
Plural, I don't know. I did, yes. I did speak to both of them. Because I think, didn't he tell you that old Moses, the Moses in the Dead timeline, he wanted to know how it went down afterwards? So, do you know what I mean? I was, what I'm like, I'm going to really thoroughly scan these environments. So if there was an extra bit of dialogue or someone with anyone in both timelines, I was probably going to find it.
Yeah, well, yeah, same here, mate. So yeah, I spoke to both. Not too much to say there. But that is the end of the choices, mate. So we're just going to skip over to the episode. Now, one thing I want to ask you in general, mate, is this episode, very different from the previous episodes we've had. Most notably because it had a shorter runtime. Every other episode's been 3 hours. This was a 2-hour episode. Were you a fan of that?
Or a little bit of a mixed bag, because at the time I actually thought, oh, this is quite refreshing, because 3 hours, I mean, what? I'm in my 30s now. Gaming for a few hours, I do find it quite tough, especially with games like this where there's lots of cutscenes. It can be quite slow, which obviously these Life is Strange games are notorious for. So there was a part of me that was like, oh, 2 hours. But then when I think about it, a lot of that 2 hours was me unnecessarily rooting around every corner of every environment. So to be honest, if I replay that episode again, it wouldn't surprise me if I was clocking in hour and a half, maybe not even that, once you know what to do and where to go and stuff. I'm a little bit mixed, because on the one hand I was like, oh, it makes a nice change from the other ones, but on the other hand, you really are the centerpiece of this episode is being at the snapping turtle, isn't it? It's the exposing Lucas. But I think the bigger point for me is they'd set something up so brilliantly in the previous episode, and now we're sort of suddenly expected to really care about this Maya character, which, I don't know, I'm trying to almost think back to Life is Strange 1. Did I really care about the Rachel Amber backstory? Yes, I did, because you then sort of had it through Chloe. You could say you had it through Safi in this one, but I guess I just wasn't as invested. There were so many different plot lines and things going on that one sort of fell to the background a little bit. So to dedicate a whole episode to exposing the guy, something that presumably everybody knew, this wasn't even a conspiracy. Yasmin knew about it, Vin knew about it. So this whole sort of revelation, it felt more as a service to Max a little bit. So therefore I was just sort of thinking that it went off in a direction that I didn't think it would go in, and that's why I think I was a little bit underwhelmed come the end. But yeah, that was a bit of a monologue, mate. So what about yourself?
Yeah, no, I completely get your point, and to build on that, I would say that with Rachel versus Maya, we care about Rachel much more, right? Because as soon as you enter the hallway and you can start freely walking, the hallway is littered with missing girl posters, right? Then we meet Chloe, and instantly it's like, you abandoned me, this person was here, and you almost feel like you've been replaced by this figure that's missing, right? And she's so prevalent at the core of the Arcadia Bay storyline. this Maya person, like Safi barely mentions her. It's something we pretty much find through digging through files or listening in on conversations. So it certainly wasn't as strong. So I think your point there, mate, is super valid. To build on, everything about like the runtime, the thing that I have a quarrel with the runtime, yeah, it's 2 hours, so that there's less time for quality. But I just want to give you like my timestamp stats, mate, for like my playthrough. I spent the first 32 minutes chatting to Safi at Hellerton. Then I spent an hour and 5 minutes in the Snapping Turtle alone. And then I spent the remaining 20 minutes at the Overlook. So you only visit 3 locations in this episode, mate. Yeah, Hellerton, Snapping Turtle, and the Overlook. And it's like over half the game, mate. Or half the episode is spent in the Snapping Turtle doing like a lot of these puzzles, meaningless dialogues. And also I just feel like, I wouldn't say the locations are running tired because it's epic to go through the different timelines to see how they vary. But like if we hark back to like season 1 Life is Strange, mate, we're constantly getting new locations. Like in this game, yeah, we had the bowling alley and then it's just all on the faculty. Apart from like the weird dream sequence we're going to get in episode 5. But I just think back to Life is Strange 1, like the episodes are going, but we still get new locations each time, whether that's the Two Whales Diner, Chloe's house, whether we're breaking into the swimming pool, whether we're going to like the junkyard, the dark room with a barn. There's always new locations, and then it just freshens the episodes up a little bit more to make them more distinct from one another. I don't know if you agree with this, but I feel like the campus, whether it gets tired or not, it's just, I feel like it could have done with some injection of new locations in the game, because I feel like 2 hours where half of it is spent in the Snapping Turtle. I don't know, mate, that just seemed quite poor to me.
No, I completely agree on the locations thing. 100%. Even when you was talking then, I was thinking like, you know how in Life is Strange 1 you visit the swimming pool and you're in there with Chloe and it's quite like a romantic scene. You then got that stealth section where you're getting away from David, but they then reused that place later on for like the Vortex Club party, right? So you're in the same location, but it feels so different. Whereas with this game, when I think of Double Exposure, I think of wandering around the campus during the day. Everything looks pretty much the same as it was in each and every episode. So no, I'm completely aligned on your thinking there. And even as well, like, I think even when you're talking to Safi, while I did enjoy it, at the start, it pretty much is like one long cutscene, isn't it? With like the odd sort of choices that you make here and there, and you're just sat talking about your circumstances and that. So yeah, it almost, I won't go as far as to say, Expanse level, but I'm pretty sure it was episode 4 in The Expanse that just like totally flopped, and there is like that sort of ringing distant bell a little bit, whereby you just sort of think this should be the episode, this should be, you've set up a brilliant cliffhanger in episode 3, now episode 4 it should take off. You've got so many interesting things with like setup of like Alderman touching himself. I've got to get over something. I really do. And then taking himself out of existence. Safi's a shapeshifter. But no, we're going to pick the storyline that's been background throughout the entire game, that we don't really care about, and it just that become front and center. And I just feel like that there was a trick missed, essentially.
Yeah, no, I really do agree on that front. I feel like, back to location point, I feel like while Life is Strange 1, you get to go around the same locations, it will chuck new ones at you. That for me is the healthy, perfect balance. While Life is Strange 2, obviously the premise is it's like a giant adventure road trip. You're never in the same location more than once, so like you don't get attached to any place. This game does the absolute polar opposite, where you're in the same location. I gather Life is Strange 3, which we're yet to play, is probably like that as well, but I don't know, I just feel like, especially in the terms of this episode, you're just constantly, you're only in 3 places, and I feel like you spend way too long at the Snapping Turtle. But I will go chronologically, and we'll start with like the Safi chat at Hellerton, like the first of the 3 locations you visit. We've obviously spoke about the context in the choice section of what most of this chatting's about, but one little criticism I have with this whole scene is, don't get me wrong, I needed my handheld because I was so confused at the end of episode 3. I didn't even consider that Safi's the shapeshifter. I was like, has alternate Max changed into Safi? Like, I just was like, I'm not even going to try and answer this because I'm so confused. But like, they just sat down and had a chat and laid it all out, and it was just like a half an hour long scene of just like asking dialogue questions, and it was just very like dialogue heavy. I don't know if I'm a fan of like plot points being revealed through just purely conversation. I feel like the storytelling can be weaved in such a better way where you find it out through like an adventure or like through a puzzle or like just like from walking around and savving it out. I feel like maybe they wrote themselves into a dead end because they wanted an epic cliffhanger for the shock factor at the end of episode 3 that now they're having to harp and kind of slow episode 4 down. And it's like you mentioned, the episode didn't take off, and I feel like a big criticism of this is it had such a slow start because you're just sat chatting with Safi, catching up. And don't get me wrong, it was pretty cool because I guess this is the first time potentially in Life is Strange history where two people with powers are sat in the same room kind of looking at each other. But yeah, I wasn't a fan myself, mate, of just the whole storytelling ability in the first half an hour of just, let's just have him have a chat to iron out all the plot points.
Yeah, you know what? You putting it like that, it does serve as a bit of exposition, doesn't it? It's sort of like, oh, if you didn't understand what was going on, we're now just going to spell it out to you over conversation. I didn't think that at the time, and I actually quite enjoyed that scene. Yeah, for the point you said, it's like two people with powers are meeting. Neither of them knew that the other had a power. I was thinking as well, though, a little bit like, how does this now impact the dead Safi? Like, are we just completely forgetting that she's dead and we're just going to, really roll forward with this one? And then that's when I got to the point when I was thinking, see what Deck 9 are doing. What we've seen here is a situation where we're now going to transition into Safi for the next game. Poor choice of words saying transition. By that I mean is that we've now set somebody else up with a power, and now this final episode and a half is going to be about ending Max's story. And as soon as I started thinking along those lines, I was like, okay, I can get on board with that. I think that we should probably park Max's story now and then usher sort of Safi as like the new lead in a future game. Obviously, that's not where they take it, and I feel that was sort of, again, a bit of a trick missed potentially. As far as the scene goes, the way it was sort of lit, I thought was gorgeous. I mean, where Max lives is just stunning anyway, but the way it was lit, I liked the whole thing where they were moving like the object back and forth for when they were like asking questions to one another, just to understand each other's situation more. And actually, it's probably the first bit of honest downtime that you have with Safi, because really, the time you've properly had with Safi is at the beginning when you're just walking around the bowling alley, and the other time is when you're having a conversation with her about Amanda. So actually, you're getting to know her character a bit more, and I thought that was okay. But like I say, coming back to that point, I feel like where they took the story was the wrong move.
Yeah, no, very well. Yeah, and I kind of agree, and I'll kind of like jump to this point now, but this is something I had a problem with episode 4, because the main theme of episode 4 was pretty much like, giving justice to Lucas, which is a complete side bullet point. It had nothing to do with the whole mystery element, like the core objective at the start of this was like, we need to find out who killed my friend. And then we find that out way too early. And then it almost becomes, okay, now I need to kind of defend myself and work out what's happened. And then we've kind of worked that out. And now it's almost like the objectives are being completed way too early. That it's almost like I get the impression the writers got to episode 4 and we're like, what do we do to fill an episode? Let's make it a giant prank. And then episode 4 isn't much better, and we'll get more to that like when we get to it. But yeah, like, I completely agree, mate. I feel like the plot kind of like changed direction way too many times. And the whole episode I was there like, why are we pranking this dude when there's a bigger mystery afoot? And it just felt like we were wasting time. And I just wasn't a fan of it. And I feel like the plot points and objectives were just way too murky this episode, and I don't know if you agree with that.
I do, because when you think of the conversation that Max and Safi have, it's like, oh, by the way, I know that you're dead in another timeline. You know, if you were to hear that, you'd sort of think, okay, so are you here to save me? But instead, she doesn't. She doesn't really give a toss about that. She's more concerned about, you know, exposing Lucas. And then, you know, I just thought, okay, like, I don't know. It sounds like, I could be wrong in saying this, it's almost like there were multiple writers for this game. And to be fair, they actually come up with some decent ideas, some of which I wish, as I've said many times, that they got carried through. But they were almost so good that they were like, right, we've got to lump all these together. So it's like you were saying, it's like they were like getting through things really quickly to the point where the ending just then felt a bit underbaked.
Exactly. It's like if it was Life is Strange 1, it's like if the Jefferson reveal happened at the end of episode 2, right? And then it's like you've got to do padding for the rest of the game, and it's like I feel like this is exactly what's happened here. But comments, let us know if you disagree with that. It might be that I'm a moaning myrtle here, and you know that's just something that I've taken away from it. We'll go over to the snapping turtle, mate. I mean, there's quite a bit to unpack. We spoke about a lot of it. There's like the jamming projector puzzle. There's the whole reveal that there's a gun. There's getting Gwen and Vin on board. Did you enjoy this section, mate?
It was all right. Yeah, I thought it was okay. There's a lot of chatting again, isn't there? Like when you're sort of recruiting people on board. I do wonder if previous choices can impact this. I feel like if there's going to be one, potentially Gwen, like your treatment of Gwen, if she chooses to not back you up in the sort of exposing of Lucas, that'll be interesting to know. Might be one for the comments. As far as the puzzle goes, I did think, if I'm putting up my realistic hat on for a sec, I thought it was silly how like Reggie was up by the projector, right? Fiddling with it for a couple of minutes. You then take 2 steps away, it then starts to cock up, and he's like, oh, what's happened here? And you think, well, what do you think's happened? Like, someone stood 2 steps from it. It's clearly them that's fiddled around with it. But I mean, it was okay. It was again a good use of the, you know, the going back in time and speaking to Moses and getting him to do it, and you know, yeah, it was all right.
I feel like, you know, whether I'm just tired of the snapping turtle location because we visit it every episode, and because I spent an hour in there because I was doing the gingerbread puzzle, like talking to all the characters. I don't know, I get this impression that like with Life is Strange Double Exposure, you have all these side characters and it doesn't necessarily know what to do with them. So every now and then they'll just be like, okay, let's just drop Loretta at this table in the Faculty Arts building so you can have a 1-minute chat with her. And then like it would just litter some characters that we see around in random locations. And they don't exactly have a plot or a storyline, and it doesn't exactly go anywhere. I just get the impression a lot of it is dialogue padding, and I don't know, a lot of these side characters feel really underbaked to me, mate, and I don't know if that's a fair assessment.
I personally think it is, and it becomes even more apparent in the next episode when it just feels like it's like the game's attempt to try and wrap things up, and I'm like, what are you really wrapping up? Like, Loretta's just there as like the podcast girl. Reggie and Diamond, they have like little things, don't they? That's, you know what, just to quickly rewind on that point, I'm pretty sure it was this episode where we established that Diamond has a thing for Moses. So like you've got like a little bit of romance simmering there, but there's not like too much else going on. Maybe like Reggie and Vin as well. But yeah, like I think in terms of the side characters, it's not that they were bad characters. It's just that they weren't used in such a way where they become massively integral to the plot. They were almost sort of serving it very minor ways. And I'm sort of thinking about when Reggie come back and he said, I just saw myself, and you think, okay, right, that then leads on to the next bit. But you're not really caring about Reggie, are you? He's just, again, a guy that's just sort of floating in the ether around campus.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm really not a fan of like these random romance ships either, because it's like, oh, okay, apparently Diamond likes Moses, but I think it's once or never that we actually see them chat. It's just kind of alluded to, and it's almost just for the sake of creating ships. And whether people are all for that, I'm not if it's not going to go anywhere, or if I'm not going to see it on the screen, or if it's not going to have any relevancy to the story. So yeah, I don't know. I sound so negative, but I do not like the direction that Double Exposure went at this point, and this is the episode that kickstarts it, or arguably the end of episode 3. But yeah, episode 4 just doesn't do itself any favors for me. We have the roast section. I think we spoke about that. Like, I guess we get another cool thing because like the episode is so slow. It's like speaking to Safi for half an hour, then just going around to Snapping Turtle, doing some puzzles, chatting to people. And the episode only really kicks into life in the last 20 minutes where everyone starts randomly screaming and speaking out these thoughts. I was confused, and the chat did clarify, oh, this is like something to do with Safi, like her emotions are kind of going out and affecting all the people that she's blended as, maybe. But yeah, so like quite a harrowing scene going up to the Overlook. I'm not gonna lie, it was like from a visual point of view really cool to see. I was quite confused though by why Yaz wasn't affected by this, so I don't know if you can clarify that, mate, why she was the only person that wasn't screaming alongside everyone else, but also what you just made of this whole effect in general.
I can only assume that Yaz wasn't affected, maybe because Safi never shapeshifted to be like her mum. Maybe that's the reason, but to be honest, I'm not completely sure either. As far as the scene goes, yeah, no, it was good. Like, it was sort of setting something up, and I was like, all right, okay. But I know one thing I did want to ask you that was sort of like the repeat of like the storm, wasn't there? Like what we've seen in Life is Strange 1. Do you think that was a good move? Do you think that it should have been something else? Maybe like a portal, or, you know, just something else, sort of supernatural, or some other different weather phenomena to illustrate, you know, the shit's going down, because it just felt like another harkening back to Life is Strange 1 to me.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think, I mean, at one point, am I right in remembering we see a double moon at some point? I don't know if that's like something like maybe in the dream sequence, but that's ringing a bell to me. But yeah, I mean, so the storm, right, is all to do with if you're overusing your power, or like you've maybe... For me, the storm happened in Life is Strange 1, right? Because Chloe's in the universe when she's supposed to be dead, right? So you're kind of going against the balance of like the universe. And then when Chloe dies, it kind of like the weather becomes good again, right? So it's almost like a Final Destination style of like, oh, death has to almost like claim its victims. So I'm almost thinking like, is the weather happening here because Safi's meant to be dead? So I was a little bit confused by it. So like, I almost had like reason to believe like, oh, okay, so Safi is meant to die in this timeline as well, potentially, which is why the storm's happening. So that's where my head was at, and I thought it was going to kind of go for a very similar route to Life is Strange 1, which I thought was negative for 2 reasons. One being you're copying Life is Strange 1's story, but 2 being, okay, they didn't go in that direction, so why is the storm there? Is the storm there just to say, oh, if you use your powers, the weather's going to go shit? So yeah, like, I would have been a fan of it if it made sense, but I'm not sure if it overly does, and it almost, I don't know if it was just there as like, for artistic reasons, lad.
Yeah, I mean, it potentially could have been, couldn't it? But it was something that I thought, we've already got a lot of parallels with Life is Strange 1, and I know that franchises do like to hark back to previous games, especially popular games. I mean, we all know that, I think even to this day, Life is Strange 1 is like the best-selling one in this particular series. But at the same time, you do then detriment to your current game, because it just reminds of everyone how great the first game was, and maybe that this one isn't as good.
No, I agree. So, I mean, that is our whole stance on the episode, mate. We basically think that, yeah, the writers put themselves into a bit of a corner, and we didn't really agree with, like, the direction of the game at this point. So, honestly, lad, I'm really intrigued to know what the fans think of this, because, yeah, we've come down quite harshly on this episode, but it'll be super interesting to see if, yeah, people think differently, and maybe we're just really negative people, lad. But is there anything else you want to say to wrap up Penumbra?
No, there's not. I'm happy to wrap it up there.
Okay, very well. Well, guys, thank you very much for joining in for this analysis episode. Join us for next week, where we're going to talk about the final episode and our thoughts and feelings and final verdict of that game. Be sure to check out our Life is Strange playlist for more Life is Strange videos. But otherwise, guys, we'll see you in the next one.
Later.